Hello. I have, thanks very much to my wife, an M911 heavy equipment semi-trailer. I've just started building it. I've got some of the chassis ready, and as I've done in other videos with other kits, I'll try and explain and show you what I've done and where I've been. So far, really very easy. Steps 1 to 5, simply gluing stuff together. What I have found is that on this kit, some of the stuff needs a bit of filler. Don't know if you can see on there. No, you can't. Let's have a bit more light on it, maybe. See on there where I've got to put some filler in. If you can't see it, I'll put some photographs on the video anyway, as I always do. But yeah, there's some quite large gaps with some of the stuff. So 1 to 5, no problem. Number 6, all the bits that I've just made go in between the chassis rails, and you need to work from the start, put one piece in at a time and make sure that the chassis stays level. Because of this piece here in particular, this piece here in particular, it's quite hard to keep the chassis level. So what I did was stuck it on a couple of blocks to hold this off the whole thing off the ground, and that way it didn't get twisted. Most of this fits in quite easily. There was nothing that needed altering at all. As you can see with this kit, all the springs are already made. It's not that complex to make. It seems a lot easier to make. There's not as many bits in it, basically. I've left the glass bits, as I always do, until after I've painted it. Otherwise you get paint all over them. I've done as far as step 8. So step 7 gets a little bit complicated. I'll go into that in a second or two. Especially with these two, there's 2 of these rods, F17. They go from the top of the axle into the chassis rail there, and I'll show it in a second or two. Prop shaft's fairly easy to go in. You've not got to build the uni joints or anything. Drive shafts, as some people call them. You don't have to build the universal joints on them. They're already fitted on there, and the end of the prop shaft, the uni joint, is shaped so that you can't get them in the wrong way round. I've also done one other little bit, that prop shaft in there, and the other F17 onto the chassis rail, the stabilizer bar for those 2 axles. So I'll show you on the actual model in a second or two what I've had to do. What I've put there is I've had to make one. You'll see it within the photographs in the video, but I've had to rebuild one of those because it snapped. Very, very fragile. I'll show you in a second. So what I've got here is the chassis put together, this looking down on it from the top. Fairly simple stuff. You can see where I've had to fill it in some places. As I mentioned, they're not that well made. The axles don't fit together. You can see quite clearly there that there's a lot of filler. Oh, where's it gone? A lot of filler had to go into that one. This looking at it from the bottom up. Again, not much, nothing difficult at all glued together really quite easily. The tanks, air tanks, gearbox, the sump for the engine, the transfer box fits in quite easily. These are the airbags for the lazy axle. I don't know what they call it in the rest of the world. I've always known them as a lazy axle or a tag axle, and it's a lift axle that can be lifted up and down, and it's not driven at all, no drive on it, so hence the name lazy axle. These 2 driven axles, they used to call it rocker suspension, because what they do is they sit on one spring with a connection onto the spring. They then have 2 rocker bars, like a seesaw effect, so that it won't move because it's all glued together. There's no way you could leave it moving. But what would happen is one wheel could go right down this way and the other one could go right down this way, and it's completely independent, so that they can roll over any kind of terrain. It's important to get that dead level, because it's a static model. It's not going to, and you're not going to be able to level it up any other way when you've glued it together. If you leave the parts unglued so that the axle rocks, then what I found was the prop shafts pull out and fall out of place. And as soon as you glue the prop shafts into place, then you have to glue the rest of it together, because it's a fixed unit then. The way I leveled it up, just bear with me a second, is this won't work here because it's not on blocks anymore, but you can see that I've got a stick with a mark on it and just went along all four short axle stubs and made sure they were all the same height. But you need to raise the chassis up on some sort of level support before that will work properly, and then you can measure them so that they're all exactly the same height off level, and then you can glue all of these bits together. If you glue it by eye, you can bet your life you're going to end up with one wheel sticking up off the ground, and it'll look a bugger. The piece that I mentioned earlier, the stabilizer, F17 I think it was, yes, there's one of them that's put in, and that one's fine. That one, however, because it's in an awkward position, I don't know how well you can see that, maybe just about, I'm turning it the wrong way, maybe just about in there. It's not easy to see that, to be fair. There is a photograph of it, but this one snapped clean in half. I tried re-gluing it, not a chance. It wasn't having any of it. So what I've done is, again, there's a photograph of it. The two little lugs on the end, I've drilled tiny holes in them. I've cut the plastic bar out from the middle, drilled tiny holes in them, and put a piece of steel wire in between that's the same length, and that should work perfectly. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't do. There's nothing much that's difficult with it. As I say, all the drive shafts, prop shafts are already made up, the uni joints are already on them. I shall carry on with this, and I will do, what we got, let me move this out of the way. I will do the rest of section 9. I shall do 10, 11, 12 and 13, and then I will paint it all. I'll paint the whole of the chassis the same as I did on the last one of these I made. Then I will assemble the wheels and paint those, and when I've done that, I'll make another video. If you have any comments or questions, please don't hesitate, use the comments box below, and I'll make another video when I've got a bit further along. Thanks for watching. Ta-da!